Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Don't Talk If You Don't Know, the unofficial official podcast for all things high-level teamfight tactics, at least in North America. My name is Frodan. I am your host. And joined with me today, we have a very special amount of guests. Normally, Bryce, Esports Law Blum, is with us, but he could not join us for the episode. But he said, you know what, you should do it anyway. So I decided to ask Mortdog, who is gracing us with his presence. Mortdog, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing good. It's cool to be here. Did some casting on the weekend. Been working in between, so now I'm here to help with this. You know, just trying to help out the community where I can, and it's always nice to support you in this. So yeah, just here to get started.
That's right. Your role's different. This instead of being like interviewed as a guest, you're going to be help driving a lot of the show and the conversation. But I'm looking forward to see what you got. Now, we also have the top two finishers from the MECHA Cup. We've got the winner, Spethom, who's a popular guy. I heard you just got off the podcast with Gangs at High Roll Radio. Is that correct?
Yep. It was a lot of fun. Now excited to do this one.
That's great. Now, let's just assume, for whatever reason, people are living under a rock, or maybe they were AFK over the weekend. Why don't you just introduce yourself to the people who might be seeing you for the first time?
Hi, my name is Spencer. I go by Spethom in game, and I am the recent MECHA Cup winner.
That's great. That's great. Where are you from? What's your background? How'd you get into League or TFT?
So I'm from Dallas. I got into TFT around when COVID hit. I'd never touched League before in my life, and a bunch of college friends wanted me to play. And I'm not gonna lie, it was overwhelming, and I was super bad at it. I still am pretty mediocre, but
really,
I only play like Blitzcrank, Nautilus, like hook champs. If you put me on anything else, I will sandbag so much.
Okay, I understand. By the way, I need to adjust your cam just a little bit there. I got you.
I thought for a second you're like, yeah, I it was really overwhelming, and I'm still pretty bad at TFT. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't quite think you get to make that claim anymore.
Oh, TFT was a lot of fun when I first started. You know, it was a good change of pace from going 0-12 in mid lane. So I just enjoyed the creative aspect of it, the decision making, and just ability to think on feet. I started off using like these apps on my phone to know what like all the best comps were, and I would not plan I did not do anything other than play the exact units that they said, and did not make any items other than the items that were listed on there. So I would have like 5 components on bench.
That is a very common experience.
Yeah. Most people actually have that.
Play like that.
And then I want to say it was around like set 4.5. that I started actually watching Twitch. I watched Ramkev, Guubums, all them, and I ended up hitting Challenger for the first time, learning from them and spamming keepers a lot.
Love that comp.
Oh, it was so much fun. I remember the first time I got into like a lobby with a streamer, just panicking, freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I'm in a game with Becca Tilts. I have a screenshot on my phone still.
I love it. And did you outplace her?
I'd rather not talk about that part. I think the adrenaline, the excitement, impacted my gameplay. It wasn't because I was just still pretty mediocre.
Sure.
I like how the screenshot's on your phone, by the way, not on your PC. So you did one of those, like, take a picture of your screen.
I didn't have a PC back then. In fact, I only got the PC after hitting rank 1. I played on the worst laptop imaginable, which also was probably the reason why I went 0-12 every time in mid lane.
I see. That makes sense.
Trackpad is not good for League.
That makes sense. Well, hopefully you have a better rig and setup now. But I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more as well. I want to check in with our other guest, Ripple. Thanks for standing by as we hear the entire journey of Spethom to how we get to this point. But same question to you, man. How you doing? And why don't you introduce yourself to the stream for anybody who's never seen you before?
Yeah. Hi, my name is RippleOverdrive. I'm pretty happy to be here talking to everyone. I haven't really been on any streams or anything, or I don't stream that much in general, so it's pretty new experience. I'm from Southern California, and I mean I played most of the TOT sets, but I got into it in like set 2. I played a lot of like Shadows and Infernos.
Oh wow!
And my favorite streamer was like Agon. And I actually remember.
Aegon! Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I remember actually like Spethom. I think the first streamer I played with was Becca Tilts, and then I also took a screenshot. But it was pretty cool.
What is going on?
And then
I think Becca's the gateway drug into the challenger.
I know.
yeah,
How's that the case? Oh man. Well, either way, it seems like all of us. Maybe that's just what it is. Becca's our origin story for everything TFT, and then we graduate to Mortdog. That's just how it works. Ripple, talk to me a little bit about kind of how you got into competitive. You mentioned set 2, which is, by the way, a very unusual set for a lot of people to get started with, because Mortdog has a lot of horrors about set 2, about people leaving the game, let alone people starting during that time. But just tell us a little bit about your journey of how you got into competitive scene from when you first started playing.
Oh yeah, well, I played set 1 a little. I didn't play it that much because I was just like playing other stuff or something. And then during set 2, my friend was like playing it, so it was pretty fun. And I should watch this streamer named Karam. And then I went there, and all he said was like "Happy birthday," and he would just be like, "It's not my birthday, man." But then
wait, this is the Karam? Yeah. Oh, interesting. Huh. Weird.
And then, but after watching a lot of streams and watching Agon, I thought it was really interesting because TFT is like this like strategy game that's also like a card game, but there's this like time pressure like APM aspect to it. So like what I thought was really cool is like watching Agon like in set 2 when 3-2 roll down like all his gold, buy like all the Inferno and Shadow units as fast as you can, and then like just only build Zephyrs. And I thought that was like kind of a really cool way to like outplay people. And but also like I don't know, just thinking like I played Hearthstone and like Magic before, and also like I played Smash, so having that like strategy but also like an aspect to APM that I thought was really cool. And then I like played most of the sets except like set 5, which I think is like a good thing I hear.
It was.
And then I got into like playing the tournaments in set 6, and then and then from there I think in set 8 I thought this set might be pretty good sets to compete in. So
interesting. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about just kind of the dynamic between two of you. Because one thing that has caught my attention was that both of you kind of entered the same study group, right? So how familiar are you guys with each other? Have you guys even seen each other on cam before? Have you guys met up ever in person? Things like that?
Never in person. I saw him on cam for like the first time, I think, on broadcast on Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We actually haven't talked that much. I think the study group was started by DPay, and he just added a bunch of players into it. And then mostly our interaction is just like chatting in there about our experiences in the game. And then a couple times we I played scrims and then looked at recordings a little. I think Spethom does not like looking at his recordings though. So those other people's, but yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I was only in the VOD review call for like maybe half of one game. I'm not gonna lie, this set, I actually did not watch almost anyone else play TFT, which is kind of surprising. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't understand.
Everything for me that I learned just came from limit testing as much as I could and paying attention to what people are doing in my games.
Interesting. So you're a strong intuitive player. You go off your own experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, very much so.
Ah, fascinating. So it feels a lot like you're cut from the same cloth as like Mismatch Socks, because he's the same way. He actually doesn't watch a lot of TFT. A lot of the TFT is like based off his own experience and knowledge and thinking about the game. Do you think about the game a lot outside of your own experiences?
Somewhat. I mean, like I'll occasionally be at work just like theory crafting like different ways to play a line. But outside of that, I mean, I just think TFT in general is very much there's a lot of logic to it because it's just understanding is the meta frontline to backline and how to come across that, what units go well, what units do, and just understanding like everything that the unit does it to, you know, maximize its utility, I guess.
Interesting. That's such a fascinating like aspect of playstyle, right? Because there's so many people who say like this is the way you improve, and then every now and then we get like a Sox, a Spethom who just kind of feels like they beat their own drum, like Spicy Appies. I think it's so fascinating from the player perspective.
Yeah, like I said, it shows a different approach to logic and problem solving. You know, you were mentioning it earlier with his favorite movie poster back there, that he seemed like a bit of a smarty, and it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? It's like that mental approach to how you think about the game and how you look to solve the problem, which is learning TFT. And so that's pretty cool to hear. Like with playing throughout set 8 and 8.5, do you have like a moment where you were kind of like, eureka, I figured something out that you were really happy with? Or
Yes. So I remember everyone complaining about the Hacker Warwick patch and how much they hated it.
We did.
Well, see, during that time, so if you looked at the tactics.tools, everyone's top champs were basically Warwick and then I think
It was like Vex, I think.
Vex, yeah, the mascots. And then you just see me, where it's Lulu Pantheon, because I was literally 2020ing the Lulu Hearts reroll comp or supers back then.
Yeah.
Because it ended up being like an insanely good matchup into the Warwick, and it was also really solid into the mascots because it allowed to compete with like the ramping aspect of the mascot comp too.
Interesting. I remember it was first starting to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ripple.
Oh, I just thought it was really funny because I remember Spethom like talking about it in our channel, like how he's just only playing Lulu, and I was like, what is this guy doing? But I remember in the Showtime Suck server, like I think Wagen played against him or something, and then they're like, I think this Spethom guy is onto something, and they're like looking at his match history, trying to reverse engineer like how do you play Lulu, like what are the hero augment prios and stuff like that. I thought it was really funny.
I had actually been doing the same thing, like before the Yumi buff. Like so on the very first patch of set 8, I was also just spamming the mascot Yumi tech before anyone else. Like it was just one of those where the comps are so similar that I think that's the main reason why I started going to it in 8.5, because it's built around the ramping aspect as well, or the hearts ramping aspect, as well as the sustained tanky frontline with the Pantheon Galio fulfilling the same niche.
am I allowed to say this might just be like my favorite moment? Like how redeeming it is to hear like, oh yeah, I just like tried to counter the meta and learned it and figured like, thank you. That,
Yes.
Like, come on.
You can stay, Spethom. Well done. I remember when this comp surfaced, because I was also one of the people that saw them being played, and I tried to like force it from certain spots. And I don't think any of you saw it here, Mortdog, Spethom, and Ripple, but I tried playing it a lot on stream, and people on stream were just like, dude, this comp sucks. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, I went 7, 8. I averaged worse than a 7. I averaged like a 7.2. And I'm like, no, you just have to understand, like, this comp actually has promise. And then I think at one point, Mortdog messaged me. He's like, yeah, China's actually complaining about like Lulu a lot. And I was like, oh my God, this Spethom's guy's like a genius. And it's so fun. Months later, I get to talk to you. I love that origin story. And I think that's a great way to kind of segue into our actual show content. So that was a fantastic intro to get to know you, because we're here to talk ultimately about the tournament. But first, before we do that, we actually want to talk a little bit about news. So we're going to discuss that a little bit actually before we go to the tournament. The first piece of news is actually straight from the mouth of Riot Mortdog. That's right. The first is that we have no B patch coming basically for this week. And I think some people were asking because it was about their competitions, like regionals and other things like that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Like, there's no B patch. How did we come to that conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point of the set where we try not to make a bunch of changes constantly. Usually it's like the first 3 patches, give or take, we can, pull that B patch lever. Here it really needs to be something egregious. And I think, everyone's definition of egregious is going to be different, right? If you're clear, maybe it's a 4.4 average that's egregious. But, in this case, obviously the Kai'Sa MF comp is sort of like the clear S tier. But other than that, there's still a lot of lines. There's still a lot of ways to succeed. And so it wasn't really B patch worthy. And to be frank, this also feels like one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't, because I think for a lot of these important competitions, people like the practice, right? They want to know the patch. And so having the B patch come in and change everything is also not great. And so as we hit to the really important competitions, we want people to have their sort of like full 2 weeks to learn it and do what they can. You're going to see the patches from here on out be pretty small. So yeah, we just no B patch for now. And the other thing is, to be frank, is like dev resources right now are pretty heavy on 9. So
woo, set 9.
Got to focus on that. Yeah.
My God, it's only like a little over a month away. I want to get some reactions though from Ripple and Spethom. Do you guys feel like the same thing? Like there's no B patch necessary? Yeah, some things like Kaisa and whatnot are pretty strong. Do you also feel the same way?
I mean, I think she's only like the strongest comp, right? So like some people, like if you get your turn to play Kaisa, you get Star Guardian C1, then congratulations. But there's definitely other things to play. I don't think it feels like bad to play against, or it's frustrating like the hacker meta or like triple Shen time knife or anything. So I think it's
God,
okay.
Let's not talk about that. All right, cool. Well, I mean, that's just that. So excited to see how the rest of the meta can potentially shape up. I do think that there's more movement in the meta, having watched a little bit of China today and seeing how Super Server is developing. More on that later. All right, our second piece of news is another developer-related piece of news, which is we have a League of Legends developer join the team. His name is, now correct me if I'm wrong, it's True XY. How do I pronounce his name?
Yeah. I mean, we just call him Tim, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is a League of Legends developer who worked on the Balance team, and he recently hit Challenger in TFT, which is great. We love the fact that devs play the game, they're hyper engaged and also skilled. I do feel like he deserves a little proper welcome because Soji replied underneath it immediately saying, it's doomed. And of all people to come to defense, Milk says it's not that bad. At least he went to the Blackpink concert. How bad can it actually be?
Okay, can I be a little spicy for a second?
Of course.
It's funny because Soju said it's doomed, but Tim was actually at Summit more than Soju was.
Oh, dang.
I don't know if you remember Frodan, but Tim was there in the background, and he was there quite a bit that day. So he's been kind of invested in TFT behind the scenes for a while now. This, isn't like a new thing. He's wanted to kind of move over to the team for a while, and so he's kind of excited to come in, and he's going to help on live. Going to be working, so it should be good.
That's great. So I'm excited, and that's just happy news. And look, we always talk about more resources, more devs, things like that caliber. We have some more, at least publicly known now. As you know, Iniko's joined the team. Iniko's in chat. What's up, man? I'm excited. Nature's also said he talked with Tim. It seems like he's a great guy. I look forward to see what he's got for us. Okay, with that said, let's talk a little bit about Midset, shall we? So we can kind of start from basically the results. So we can start with, actually, you know what? How about this? Let's bring up the stats. Is that interesting for you guys? I have the stats of the compositions pulled up on stream. Let me move this little label out of the way. And so as you can tell, yes, Kaisa definitely did very well. It averaged better than a 4.0 on the first day. On the second day, though, it did a lot worse, despite it still being very popular. I don't know if that's variance because, it's only 32 games, but it's still worth noting that as the lobby qualities increased, Kaisa's performance went down. And that's something that I think is worth shouting out to start things off here. There's also a lot of other things to kind of pick apart. So I kind of want to open up to the field and talk a little bit about how the meta felt. Mort, you cast it. So why don't you start off the conversation? Talk about what you saw, some trends, things that you thought were like overplayed, underplayed, XYZ.
Yeah, so it was really funny because when you're a caster, obviously you're watching the one game that you're casting. You're super focused on it, right? And then the game that you're off, you're trying to watch 2 or 3 lobbies and see what was going on. And for whatever reason, call it caster curse or whatever, any lobby we watched would have 2 or 3 Kaisa players.
No.
The main broadcast kept getting cursed by that. And then we would be on our game off and we'd watch other lobbies and it'd be like, oh, there's no Kaisas this lobby, or they're playing Garen, or we saw the Garen carry augment with Gadgettine get played. And it's why aren't these on stream? So
yeah.
It was a very frustrating casting experience where it was every game we casted was gold lobby, Star Guardian 2-1, and so
I know.
Kind of cursed.
I'm sorry, Mort. That's unfortunate. That also happens to the quality of lobbies too, in terms of sometimes you pick let's say it's a hype final penultimate lobby. The other one that you picked is the one where everyone's at 10 HP and below, but no one died. That's how it works.
Yep.
Spethom and Ripple, talk to me. Like, let's start with you, Spethom. Out of all this, does anything surprise you in the stats when you look at some of this data?
I'm actually really surprised at how poorly Acel Flex did on the first day. I don't know if people were just playing it improperly, but Acel is definitely one of the stronger units, and I think if you know how to navigate like the early game to get to like a strong late game board where it should be like the mech frontline plus Acel and then some hopeful secondary damage dealers, it usually caps out extremely high and has actually a somewhat decent matchup into the Kaisa comp. So I'm surprised that it averaged a 5.44 on the first day or day 3.
Yeah, I mean, day 4, it also didn't do too much better. You can see it right below Renegade and Viego also kind of almost going as 6.0. And so maybe NA just doesn't understand Acel. Do you think that's a fair conclusion?
I think more than anything, I'd get probably was people that were so tunneled on like either spell slingers or like the Kaisa MF line not hitting and then pivoting into Acel and trying to, you know, scrape out whatever they could. But I think if people went more into that line like planned, it would be performing a lot better.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with that pretty heavily. It was a lot of like, okay, I'm doing my level 6, level 7 roll down. Somebody else got the Star Guardian. Somebody else got the Kaisa. I'm stuck with a Shojin. So I play around that because I happen to hit 2 Acels. A lot more than it was like somebody really planning around like an Acel carry augment and things like that. So I agree with that analysis pretty heavily.
Yeah, by the way, there is some like, you know, wonkiness with the stats. Again, this was taken by the spreadsheet that was done by the folks over at Wisdom and Giant Slayer, at least from the admin team. That's why you see something weird, like, for example, you have 4 Ox Force, 4 Spellslinger Twisted Fate, and then somewhere down halfway through you see TF Flex. And then, you know, later on you see some more TF stuff. That's because data is like always fragmented in that sense. Also, Star Guardian Kaisa Reroll plus Kaisa MS Flex. Ripple, you're next on deck. Is there anything that catches your eye? Either notable comps that did well, things that surprised you?
How many of those Lulu reroll games were you responsible for, Spethom?
I only played, I think, one of those. It was the first game of day 4, which I was super happy with because I was super nervous going into it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is my bread and butter. I'm so comfortable." I was actually contested in that lobby too. Was the surprising thing.
Oh, how'd you do?
Well, I got Axiomark second augment, so I went 3rd, which I actually could have gotten 1st if I positioned better. But you know, we take those.
We take those. I mean, look, you're able to still get the top 4. So, actually, apologies by the way. I accidentally switched the graphics. I didn't really mean to do that. I was getting ready to talk about the results, which we totally can. Because I think that's where meta will tie into. Is there any final comments that people want to say about like any of these stats here?
I think another thing is like I think like the Belbuff, Acel Flex, and Mech Samira, like for me kind of fell under a similar line because most of them want to play Mech frontline. So I feel like another reason they might have struggled is just because they may just be contesting like Garens and stuff. And I think everyone's playing Garen this patch. So if you don't get like 2-star Garen, then you're just not having a good time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, because a lot of it was, you know, we even saw like Garen get played with the Misfortune lines. We saw it with everything else. And so, you know, you would see an Infinite team that happened to get a Garen do a lot better than an Infinite team that was stuck playing Aatrox, for example. And so, you know, everyone, Kaisa and MF were the talk, but Garen, I think, was the secret sauce, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of Sona reroll.
Yeah. I mean, Hearts reroll can do well, but the problem is you have to get at least 3 tiers, in my opinion. And with all the Kaisa MF players, it becomes a lot harder to get those coveted tiers.
That makes sense. One question, I guess, about this, and we can move on. Do we really think that AD is just non-existent? I think some people are saying that AD is trolling. If you're doing AD is dead. If you do it, you just high rolled out of your mind. Do we agree with that sentiment, Ripple?
I feel like I'm a player who likes playing around AD more. Like I like starting like bow and sword. And I think it's harder this sets than the previous sets, probably because of like the Garen thing. Like you're pretty much for AD, you're either playing like Warwick into like some brawler stuff, or you're playing Samira and Belveth, where your frontline kind of has to be Garen. Like you can't do this like the old AD frontline with like threats and brawlers and Aegis units. Like it just doesn't work very well. So yeah, I think if my opinion on why AD is not doing as well is because it's harder to build the front line.
Interesting.
And Belva's also just weaker than she was at the end set 8.
That is true. I mean, Belva's definitely not nearly as crazy. When you get a 1-star Belva, then you're able to super stabilize. Spethom, do you agree with this sentiment as well?
For the most part, I think part of it also is just like in this meta, Jhin, it just does not feel that great. I feel like Jin's been one of those units that hasn't really had his time to shine that much yet. And so when you think about how like you have Acel, MF, Nico, and TF as all like premier super solid 4-cost AP carries, and then you look at the AD, it's Samira, kind of Warwick, but a lot of his damage comes from the laser core line, and then the Jhin that's just not doing as much. I understand why a lot of people are saying AD is not as good as it once was.
Why is that, Mort, or anyone else wants to answer? Like, why is Jhin? It's a front to back meta, right? Why isn't Jhin better?
I think part of it is just total DPS output. It's just not quite there. You have to invest in 5 and 7 Renegade to really get him high, which means you're carrying a lot of dead weight. I will say, though, while I totally agree with the statement that like AD is less powerful, we saw a lot of people do very well because they got a uncontested AD. Yeah. And so it was definitely one of those metas where it's like if you were willing to play the line and knew the line, you got rewarded with a solid second, third, or occasionally a few firsts.
That's right. Asa's in chat saying that you two are talking about how like AD, this and it's like weak, but both of you were playing AD in the final lobby to win the tournament, go top 2.
Okay, yeah. I think like half of my games are probably AD, to be fair.
Actually, yeah.
Interesting. And that's because you like to play counter meta, right? Specifically, Spethom?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't like contesting 3 different players for the same unit. I never hit.
Interesting.
So, I feel like it's more consistent if you know like your outs of the non-meta stuff. You're more likely to get your top 4s than going for like the more top 2 or 7/8 play.
Music to Mortdog's ears. How do you go about crafting a counter meta line? I think that might be something that's really interesting because let's say there's people here that's like, yeah, that sounds great. I want to do that. Without spilling all the secrets, the trade secrets of how you do it, are you able to share any insight as to how you go about crafting a counter meta line?
I mean, for the most part, it's just trying to focus on like the intuitive nature of the game, like understanding how the meta comp itself works. And then you kind of have to reverse engineer and figure out either you can find out comps that are super similar. Like I think the Spellslinger Nico TF dual carry line is extremely similar to Kai's MF, which is why I played it a decent amount in the tournament, because at the end of the day, it's a ramping champion that provides MR shred and huge single target DPS with AoE champion that has backline access. So when you start like trying to figure out what the comp has, that's where you start going back and trying to figure out like how you can figure out pretty much how to beat it. And then you just limit test, to be honest.
Right, which you do a lot. I see you go up and down the ladder a lot, Spethom, all the time.
I'm not LP. I mean, at the end of the day, ladder is like, the game is for fun. LP doesn't mean that much to me. I'm just trying to enjoy the game. And, I could play like the meta line every game and just try and get as high rank as I want to, but that just isn't as fun to me. So,
I agree. Ripple, do you identify closer to Spethom's playstyle, or are you more closer to those meta players?
I mean, I definitely don't like experiments or limit tests or run my LP down as much as Spethom. I do like to try to play like the game like as naturally as possible, like as Mortdog intended, like play what I hit. Like I'll understand that some comps in the meta are really strong, and like if you get the chance to play them, like you definitely should. But I think most of the comps right now are like okay, and like it's mostly around the end game that you'll see like which one's actually stronger. You know, like if you get second to Kaisa 3, then you pretty much won the game, right? So I think like as for playing AD at least, like you can play a lot of lines and just play tempo or like keep your HP going, and like if you hit your normal board in stage 4, which you usually can because other people aren't playing it, then you'll usually be in an okay spot. You might not like win as often, but it's still like more consistent, like as Spethom said.
Sure. Let's bring up your scores, the final lobby here. And the follow-up question is for you, Ripple. I mean, you two did very well. Asa in third. We're going to get to the other players in the top 8, but we heard a lot about Spethom, about how he approaches the meta. What do you think is like your edge over a player, like players in this field? What is your specialty that stands out above other people?
Or me?
Yes, sir. You.
Oh, I mean, I think I was like just kind of lucky that day. I don't know.
That's not answering my question. What do you think you do better on average compared to players of your skill level?
Oh, I mean, I think I play like, I think something that I do that I put semi far from other players, like I try to play as like consistently as I can. I don't really play for like anything that I feel like might place me 8th or 7th. I like never open forts, and I just try to like play towards like saving HP and playing towards something that I think is good in the meta. Not trying to cook anything in tournaments except for one game. And then then I think I study like an okay amount. So the games that I did well, like I just knew how to execute them, and I just kind of believed, I guess, in like the stats and the knowledge.
There you go.
Looking at your score line for the games that you got 6th, what do you think went wrong those particular games?
Oh, well, game 5, for some reason I decided to make Infinite Team spat with Stargarian spats. It was a spat lobby into a prismatic 2-1. So half the lobby got fawns from Urk's grab bag, and then I was just like playing the worst Kaisa game ever. I don't know why. And then game 6, well, I think that was on stream. What happened was like at 3-2, I was rolling for like the Garen augments, and I hit Destructive Resonance, and I tried my best to make it work. And,
the Echo Carry augment, you played that.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
So that was on stream. That actually came up on stream because I made a claim, and a few people in chat didn't like this, but I saw you put the Gargoyle Stoneplate on it. Were you aware it doesn't work with MR anymore, or was this just like really awkward for you?
I was not. I thought it was like last set where it scaled to his MR.
So I was right. Okay, good.
Wait, so because what does it scale off of then?
It's just damage. It's just a damage amp. So you're supposed to build like Jeweled Gauntlet, Death Cap, Titans, etc. You don't put defenses on them anymore.
Jewel Gauntlets. My God.
Yeah, and so because I was casting that game and I was like, oh cool, he's playing that augment, and someone was like, yeah, he just completely whiffed, which makes sense why you would pick it. And then so that makes sense. You just didn't quite hit the augment you were looking for. So
Destructive Resonance, gain an echo. Your strongest echo's ability hits all enemies within 3 hexes and deals 200% increased damage, but no longer slows at enemies' attack speed. That's right. No magic resistance scaling, it was in 8.0. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that shows how often I pick that augment, and the fact that you're even willing to do that, Ripple, is pretty awesome. And I think that's cool. The fact that you're willing to play like the good stuff, but it looks like you're willing to go off script a little bit. Is that fair to say?
I don't know if necessarily willing to. I just don't think there was anything else to take there.
Okay. Fair enough. Touche. Let's toss it over back into Mortdog. So we talked a lot about Spethom and kind of his journey. Actually, we should talk a little bit about Spethom in the winning moment. Actually, before we do, the moment where you won, you were elated. What was going through your mind as you kind of recognized that? Well, one, you were playing a 1v1 versus Ripple for the tournament. Were you aware of that? And two, what was going through your head?
So to be honest, I was extremely excited the round before because I realized, hey, I top forward. I'm going to regionals. I know that for a fact. So I was just ecstatic about that. And then after the next fight, I see it's just me and Ripple. So I'm excited because I'm like, holy, like, It's one of the study group. Like, it's so cool. So I literally, you see me type "Let's go Ripple," which I feel so bad for because I kind of debated him.
Yeah, you beat him right after.
I thought when he typed that he meant like I won or something, and I was like, oh, bet. Like I just took my hands off the keyboard, like I didn't position or anything. I don't know if I could have won, but
No way.
Yeah.
Oh.
I felt so bad when he told me that afterwards. I was just like, no, I was just so excited. Like, legitimately, I was like, oh my gosh, dude, me and Ripple did it. That's so cool.
Nice.
I love that. That is some tech indeed.
This tournament was just another notch on the this always needs to be required. But seeing you on cams also be really excited because I got to see that when Frodan was like streaming it, and you were really excited.
Oh,
You could tell.
I mean, to be honest, so like I said, at the end of the day, I feel weird with it because I do consider myself to be like a for fun player first and foremost before competitive. So I wasn't joking when I said if you go back through like the VOD of the tournament, I am straight up singing and just jamming out to the music more than I'm focusing on the game.
And does that help you play better though? Like in some ways, because it helps you feel like you're in your element.
So it's one of those where it's like I think it helped me not really worry or like overthink what I'm doing and just go through like what I play more naturally, I think, more than anything, and not overthink myself. Just trust my gut, and at the end of the day, whatever happens kind of
That's
mentality.
great. Complete
I think that's really
sidebar.
important.
I just said I've seen people do that in other, like, people know me from Hearthstone, for example. There's some players like that in Hearthstone where like they put on sunglasses, they're vibing. It's clear that they're jamming out to music, and it almost feels like they're not taking competition seriously. But that's how they like kind of get into their element, where they trust their instinct instead of overthinking things, letting the rope burn down, and all of a sudden like it's chaos. I feel like that's kind of the same vibe I'm getting from you, Spethom. Do you feel like that's fair to say?
Yeah. Also, it helped me stop, like, not get tilted. Like, I'm not gonna lie, game 6, I whiffed my roll down so hard. I think I was level 8. I rolled like 55 gold. I hit 1 Belveth, 0 Samiras, and 0 Garens on the roll down. And then, so I'm just like, oh god, I'm bot for it. I'm losing like all my chances of making it to regionals. And then thankfully things went my way in the other lobby also, and in that lobby, like with the people that were lower on the standings getting like top 2. But I just went back to the music, just tried being like, it's all good. We just having fun. And it helped like regain my mental before the final lobby.
Okay. Last question about this. Let's say it's regionals. It's game 7. You need one song to get you back in the zone because something happened. What's the song? What's the song that you're picking?
Oh God. I'm gonna go with Burbank House by Subi Club.
Okay, I don't know that one.
No, not Poppy by Stacy, Jordan. Oh my God.
K-pop?
Yes.
Are you a K-pop stan? Is that what's going on here?
No. It's because, for a while, again, I will limit test anything. During set 8, I played only Poppy Lux reroll for a little while, and Jordan wanted me, anytime that I got it, to just play that song and only that song.
Okay. I got it. So it's an inside joke. All right. So that was great. Fantastic winning moment. Really great interview, by the way. If you go back and watch the broadcast, that felt great because I felt like the casters were uplifted by that. There's Mortdog. We just hear so many times on the players like, man, I'm just like high rolling, games all luck. It was just my day. But I felt like you were really enjoying yourself there too.
I was very happy in that moment. Still am.
Great, fantastic. Let's talk a little about some of these other players. What player outside the top 2 here, Ripple and Spethom, that I think you were really excited to see in the final lobby?
I mean, ASO was a big one, not to just jump to the 3rd place, but I mean, the fact that ASO, I think, has been kind of down lately, not really feeling it, is kind of taking some time off of streaming. And so for him to be able to come back in and get this 3rd place here and lock a spot at regionals and show he's still really good, I think that was pretty big. Robin Songs, I mean, I know he's probably not happy with the 8th place here in this lobby, but that's still 8 out of 128 or whatever. And so seeing Robin do well there was cool. And then it felt like a lot of new guard, right? Like Kindle Jim, Replay, Spearkles, a lot of new guard. And so we're seeing some of the newer players kind of overtake the old, which is kind of cool to see.
Absolutely. Let's go with Ripple. Who was the most impressive player outside the top two, right? Let's say you two were the most impressive. Let's just say that. Who do you think impressed you the most from the remaining 6?
Oh, yeah, I think I was also very impressed that Asa got like third or like to the top 8 because I saw that he really hadn't been playing that much. And I remember I think like last week on the show, we're talking about how he like Socks and Guubums coached him for like 5 games or something, and that's like all he knows about the patch. And then and then he like beasted the tournament.
All right, let me bring up something real quick because I got a chance to talk with Asa and I just copy pasted some more our Discord. I hope it's okay. I already told the players that I'm going to be sharing about this on the podcast so they know. Asa said, quote, "Oh, it was the worst tournament I've ever played by a long shot." I'm going to keep going. I'm going to decay on ladder in 12 hours. I'm very unattached with the meta. Socks and Guubums coached me for 2 games right before the tournament started and told me to play Kaisa. I didn't even see it in my shop. I had to play a total of 0 times up to that point, and I watched 0 other games either since I've been studying poker. However, Asa did say this. I will say something Socks told me recently that kind of blew my mind was that he was playing other strategy games to make you better at TFT. I kind of think of it as like an NBA player doing bench presses. Like you don't do that exact thing in TFT, but it works out your strategy muscle. So he spent 40 hours beating other games like Steven Sausage Roll and Snakebird before the tournament started. Mortdog, you're laughing. What's your reaction here?
I mean, the strategy game part is true, right? And I think Spethom kind of alluded to that, right? The way you approach problems, it's essentially a problem-solving game, how naturally you can react to the situations are presented. So I agree with that part. The part I'm still rolling my eyes is like, oh, it's the worst tourney I've ever played. Shut up. I like you said, when we get these NATFT players, it's like, oh, I don't know, man. I just kind of like high rolled. I don't know. Like, come on. The self-awareness there is maddening. But
I think we're in the reality is that they feel the need to say that when it's implied. It's like, of course, in order to do well in a tournament, you have to get lucky. It's impossible to low roll consistently in the tournament and get to a top 3 spot. But it just feels like that's what they tunnel and focus upon more. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I have some other testimonies here. You might as well just bring it all up. I talked to Replay. This is his username is Skanda on Discord. I asked, what do you think you did well? He says, I don't think I did anything interesting on that front, but I played how I normally play, except this preparation was different. He said, I drank tons of caffeine and did all the small things like positioning and scouting. Also, I ate healthy and I exercised. Basically, be a normal person for a few days leading up to the tournament so I could feel well and play well. But I only could sustain that for a few days, like 4 times the normal amount of green tea. So my takeaway is Replay tried to function like a healthy, normal adult for a few days, but found that was unsustainable. So now he's back to his degen lifestyle.
I like that advice. I like that take, right? Like trying to get yourself in a feel good spot. Maybe not the overdosing on caffeine. That seems a little less, but the being healthy part, that will put you in a good mind. Again, both of these are like getting you in a healthy mental, right? We always talk about how some of our degen TFT players have some pretty weak mental, and so I kind of like both of these strategies for helping improve that.
Yeah, out of game. And I know Ace is right now trying to in chat explain like the things that he doesn't think he did well, but maybe I just to show you that you were doing some of those really core components correctly, and things falling your way leads to even more success. And regardless of what you say, Asa, you are still, in the short time you've been competing, one of the most accomplished tournament players, regardless of that. That is just objective truth. The last testimony that I have right now from this Discord is Setsuko. I asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you played at MECHA Cup? And Setsuko said I probably played like a 7. I didn't make any huge mistakes in terms of lines, but I missed a few opportunities here and there, and it cost me a lot of points, which made me feel like 7 was pretty harsh. But I know that you two played a lot with him throughout the tournament. Do you feel like Setsuko is kind of overly harsh on himself, or do you think that's accurate? We'll start with you, Ripple.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm pretty sure on day 3 he was in every single one of my lobbies. I don't know how, but yeah, I mean he was picking good lines, and then like I remember one game I saw him just like have only one Kaisa at like 4-3 or something. Just like surely it's not his fault, but I do think he's like pretty hard on himself. I mean, I watch his stream a lot. I think he'll get mad at himself a lot for making mistakes, and like throwing any placements, which is really good, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hold on 1 second before I go to someone else. This is Setsuko replying. Yeah, there's no caps, there's no swearing, there's no flame. There's more. He's multidimensional, and that might blow your mind. But the things that you see on stream aren't the entirety of the person that is behind that screen. I do have one last testimony, and this is from Kindle Gem. I want to go to Spethom for this after I explain it. I first asked, some questions like, "What do you think went well?" Same thing. He gave me a bunch of meme answers like Kaisa and Shiv, or like Mortdog had me, things like that. I was like, okay, whatever. Doesn't look like anyone's giving me a real answer.
That's a lot.
After about like 15 to 20 minutes, this guy typed a 1,000 word notepad message, sent it to me, and it's just nonstop chatter about like how much effort he put into it, right? He has this entire tier list. He talked about his methodology. He talked about things he did right and did wrong. This is what Mortdog's talking about. That's what we want to hear. Not just like, LOL, I just got Kaisa and Shiv and that was my game plan. It's like, this is the entire point of what we're trying to get at, which is there's a lot more that goes into the process of TFT, Mort.
So I'll let Spethom go first, but I definitely want to touch on this.
Okay, go ahead, Spethom. So you saw Kindle Gem, he's like the underdog. Did he catch your eye at all during the tournament? Or Paisanos, as he's mostly famous for.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I was in like any of his lobbies except for like the final one. So I didn't really get to see his gameplay throughout. But I mean, no matter what, like making the final lobby, sure, there's always gonna be some high roll aspect to it. But I think he played day 1 and day 2, right?
I believe so, yes.
So like making it through the day 1, day 2 gauntlet, in which, because I looked at like the scores beforehand. This dude had like, or was putting up like at least 30 points each day. Being able to do that consistently between both patches shows a lot of good fundamentals in the first place. But I think, so unironically, I think Hyperroll probably helped him a little bit because of the same way that I was saying, like, when you're playing the different game modes, you have to focus on different aspects of TFT. With that, it's more focusing on like the lines and what each of the units do. So I think when you're not worrying about the econ as much, you got to really understand the units. And I have a feeling that probably helped him a lot in the tournament.
Apparently there's a trend happening. So Darth Noob, when Hyperroll first released, I think in set 5, more correct me if I'm wrong, Darth Noob grinded Hyperroll to the top ranks, then popped off in tournaments. And apparently that's a trend that's happening specifically within this competitive TFT Discord server. And now Paisanos is the latest beneficiary of grinding Hyperroll in order to perform well. So if you were to look at the current standing, Zoo Nation is going to be popping off in set 9 because this guy spams nonstop Kaisa to Hyperroll global rank 1. Be on the lookout. I'm just putting it out there because apparently Hyperroll is a good indicator of who's going to perform well. Congratulations, Paisanos, Kindle Gem. I think that was really good. And I think the last thing I
wanted to touch on that real quick though, if you can go back, because the thing with that is like, it's one of the, I don't know what it is, and sorry, I'm gonna be the old guy for a second, but there's this like facade of like, oh yeah, I don't care, stupid game, grumpy, whatever. But secretly, deep down, all these players really care a lot, and like that's what this is coming from, right? This is clearly he cares a lot. And I wish they would lean into that side more, the enthusiastic, the caring, like I want to get better, not the like grumpy, oh, I just got lucky, man, I don't know. And like it's just such a healthier mindset, and like this puts you in a dark place if you go the other way. And so I'm like happy to see this, right? Because this is a spark of potential of like, okay, you care, now lean into that, take that caring, turn it into action, and do awesome things with that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the symptom of just the age that esports competitors are in more. I just feel like a lot of them, caring is lame, not caring is so cool, right? And I think that is definitely part of it. I also think another factor is that TFT does have variance, right? I'm going with the other side more. TFT has a lot of variance. Sometimes things are out of your control, and sometimes you feel like you didn't play at your best and you are performing, or vice versa. And I think they're trying to reconcile these like different factors that are going on. So it just feels a lot easier to simplify things. And that's what we do in TFT, right? There's so many complex decision making, and at one point we're just like, whatever, we're just gonna level and play a unit, right? Like just simplify your decision making out of the complex scenario.
That's why I was asking Spethom and Ripple about their game 6 in particular, because much like other games, you remember your bad beats. You remember when it was like, okay, I just got screwed, right? Like the 55 gold roll down where you hit nothing. You remember those, and they're definitely in there for sure. But it's important to also remember like where you did it right and how you played well. And so, it's so important to hold that mental.
Yeah. Like for me, I think holding the Garens in game 7 was like a huge reason why I won, because again, we talked about how that's like probably the premier front line, and me holding 3 on board and then 2 on bench made it so no one else could get those, which was huge for me.
Yeah. Wasn't Ripple chasing Garen as well at the end of game 7?
No, I don't think I needed one, but I'm glad you did. I probably played sorry because of it.
There you go. Okay's business. Speaking of the, kind of you're talking a little bit about dynamic of like the wider field and whatnot. I want to talk about some of the other results that happened, because you mentioned caring and not caring. It did feel like when we go visit like day 3, for example, I think one of the big topics that people want to talk about right now is that Soju performed really poorly in day 3, and a couple of other players as well, but Soju wanted to do well for the regionals, and it did feel like people were kind of like going back to the original question: does he wash? Does he not care? I kind of want to hear from the player's perspective specifically. And it doesn't have to be about Soju. I feel like singling out might be a little bit unfair, but he is the person of interest, I think, out of the field amongst other people who fell in day 3, like DQA, Precedent, Pitsy, Rainplosion. We'll start with you, Spethom. Did you notice anything specifically around these group of players that I'm mentioning?
I mean, not too much. It's just one of those, like, TFT is always going to be a variance game. You can do as much as you can to work the low variance into your favor and do the best you can. But at the end of the day, sometimes, you might be putting too much pressure on yourself, because I know that is definitely something that I could see with some of the bigger names in the scene. Because I remember Setsuko talking about that way back in set 7, even how he was like, he was tired of being known as this ladder warrior. So I think when you start putting that pressure on yourself, like Soju, this is the first time he's not making regionals. Like it wouldn't surprise me if that got to him a little bit, and then he starts overthinking some of what he's doing and playing slightly suboptimally.
His last game,
but that's all
felt
conjecture.
Like Oh no! I think it's just there might be a little bit of truth to it at the very least. I'm not sure how much of it is, but he was in a good position to crush it the last game, and I think a lot of people who were watching along were saying like, man, that just. I think he basically took a couple of really difficult and bad decisions that end up leading to a spot where he didn't qualify for day number 4. But we can focus a little bit more on some of the other positive stuff, or maybe talk about some of these other players. Ripple, why don't you shout out a name? I have something from like the day 3 standings here, some of the players that did do well. Who do you think had the most underrated performance of the tournament? If you were to just kind of pick somebody that isn't getting a lot of fanfare, that people aren't really talking about, because Spethom and you are stealing all the spotlight.
Oh no, there's this ONTFT person. I remember.
Who?
Yeah.
I just remember it was like game 5 or something, and I get into a lobby with Setsuko and ONTFT, and then Setsuko just types, "Who the fuck is ONTFT? No disrespect." and then this guy like won both our lobbies, so he got like top 1, top 2. So that guy's pretty cool.
Nice. I like that. I even made a tweet, which was fantastic, and Mort, of course. What more is it? You're not trying to ratio everybody on Twitter, right? But that's just what's happening.
No, it just happens sometimes by accident. I'm just because it always happens with my short answers too. But the 2 I wanted to shout out that I was kind of looking at were Appies. Appies played a lot of really crazy lines, and I think if he played a little more disciplined, he probably could have done a little better. But he made some really wacky lines work really well, and so that was really cool to see. And then Malala, which was another interesting one that we were talking about this on the broadcast, that like Malala continues to be this player that consistently does well at tournaments and is kind of underappreciated. But for whatever reason, final day pressure gets to him hard. And so every time it's final day, struggles a little bit. And so if he can overcome those final day jitters, I think he has a chance to kind of move up and be another top tier player.
Interesting. He's in chat. And he also sends the love. It looks like he kind of agrees with you. Spethom, who do you think had in your mind, like a performance worth shouting at that's just not getting attention?
Renzer. I'm not gonna lie. He played one Infiniteam line, probably the best I've ever seen, and I'm pretty sure he got first and beat like the fully capped Kaisa 3 board as a result.
Oh wow.
It was literally like it was one of the most impressive like games that I watched, because I'm pretty sure that was the game that I went 7, so I got to watch a lot of it.
Okay. Would you spend $44 on your fantasy draft for Renzer?
Depends on the budget.
That's right. More on that in a little bit. By the way, Renzer and Gyalu put out a fun backseat, like how to backseat 101 from a challenger player recommendation. You can check that out on Twitter and the subreddit if you want. The first thing that I'm going to shout out is just, I think DPay had a great tournament.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's part of the group. He topped day 3 standings. I'll bring it right back up. 40 points, which is very impressive. And it's also because he got a lot of hype into it as well. He did great on the box ladder tournament. He's been crushing it in snapshots. He qualified for regionals via snapshots. And so there's a lot of like mystique around that, right? Like, and there's a little bit of a meme developing in TFT where everyone who has really good breakout performance always tends to say, this is the first set I took seriously. But that's what DPay is saying. This is my first set I'm taking seriously, to which, the ganglies of the world are like, is this the rookie of the set? To which we say it's the breakout performance of the set. But point notwithstanding, I think DPay had a great tournament, and also kind of just shows you the mentality, Diff, of having that coach mentality from Overwatch coming to TFT.
So DPay's interview, by the way, was just another amazing interview. That was really cool to see. And the way he approaches things, the whole like, look, I know I'm not the best, so work ethic is going to be how I have to sort of overcome this. I can relate to that pretty hard. And so that was a great interview. And so, I really hope good things for DPay in the future.
Yeah. And
I think.
Go ahead, Ripple.
Oh, I think I've been watching DPay get better for a long time. I think like at the beginning, pretty much like we played in set 6, we played in like the LCQ, and I talked to him a bit. And then set 8, like and then we started talking more in like set 8. And I remember there was this period of time where like where he said like we studied together or something. It was mostly just like him sending me recordings or VODs asking me like what happened, or like what you could do better, or like coaching him and stuff. And then I've watched a lot of egregious DPay gameplay, but he's gotten a lot better. And I think it is because of the work ethic, and he really does like study a lot. And then he's played like a bunch this set for like the ladder grind, but also just like learning for tournaments and stuff. So
okay, you can't say that without telling us one example of an egregious play that DPay used to do. We accept that he's a better player now, that he's on the path to elite TFT skill level, but what is an example of young DPay making an egregious decision?
This one's not so young, but okay. On day 3, like one of his first, which was in a lobby with him, Spethom and Whale. Yeah. We were watching it, and he got like an underground opener, and then he was like angling for Kaisa because of his items or something, and then he has like an open bow at 3-3 on the carousel. Instead of taking tier for Shiv, he takes Samira with a bow to upgrade to 4 underground, which did not change his cash out timing at all. And then gets bailed out with like the best 3 cash outs with Jeweled Lotus. Like it was like Hodges and tank items.
Oh my gosh.
And then he just wins out the game from there with like a random MF2. So yeah.
All right. We're not trying to flame DPay, who was in chat a minute ago and now apparently is streaming. I thought we were trying to have this I was trying to give him a shout out because he was showing up, but all good. Any other names that we want to talk about in terms of players? You covered most of it. Actually, I want to say one thing. Ramblin won a single tiebreaker, but unfortunately lost every other tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate again. And Ramblin will be competing in LCQ. Can you give this guy a break, please?
Trust me, I'm trying, man. It just pretty rough.
A couple more shout outs. Kyvix, a very solid 9th place. I think he just keeps falling by the wayside, but if he was in that final lobby, he would have also shown once more why he's a great tournament performer. Garchomp had a really good run, and I feel like putting out a lot of that content, putting in that work, we'll see whether or not these players can make put a lot of these performances together for regionals, because I'd be really excited to see them perform. All right, with that, was that Ripple?
Oh, I was gonna say Joe Bookmark got like revived from the waitlist, and they did pretty well.
Nope.
Apparently, there's a waitlist buff, which is like
I think there is, yeah.
People who like get eliminated on an earlier day of competition, if they get on the waitlist, they just make like a massive run. That was Malala last tournament. The tournament before that was Xiao Dian, and now it's Joe Bookmark. So there's some kind of thing going on there. Maybe it's like you're just very motivated to not waste this last chance, and so you're just extra focused, like a 10% focus.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I feel like it's maybe like a pressure thing, because it's like you lost day 3 or day 2 or whatever, and you're like, oh well, like, you know, I'm done for now. And then they're like, hey, do you want to play? And you're like, sure. Like, sure. I'm not supposed to be here. I'll just, you know, play however I want to play. And then maybe
it could be that.
From that.
That makes sense to me. All right, we're going to move to the next portion of the show, which is to review the power rankings. This is usually for us to, you know, basically own up to whether or not we did well in the predictions or not based on top 15 rankings. We always just think this is really interesting as an exercise, and it'll bridge to the top 15 that Spethom and Ripple presented to us. And so we had 8 players from this rankings make it to the top 16. We feel like top 16 is fair. We're doing 15 players out of the big field. So we got Dishsoap, Setsuko, Robin. So we got the top 3, and then Ramblin', Deepay, Replay, Asa, and Kyvix. Funny enough, Asa just gets all this, like, he shouldn't even be on here. He's getting in on seniority, then pops off and gets third in the tournament. I love that. And then even the players that missed out on the top 16 were like right there, right? Guubums was 17th. He was just like missing out just barely. Kurum and Wasian 21st, Sox in 23rd. So overall, I felt like we were doing pretty good. We do like to toss out this question to first timers onto the show, which is to Spethom and Ripple. Do you feel like in hindsight, this top 15 rankings was pretty fair? Ripple, I know you were on previously and you weren't on this time. I kind of want to get some of your thoughts when you look at some of these rankings and how the results are shaking out.
I mean, I think they're like decently fair. I think part of the reason I was on the previous ranking was because it was for like just the people in the top 64 of that tournament, and a lot of the people here just weren't there, right? They got day 1, day 2, or missed a qual or something. So yeah, though I do think like some things about these rankings is like, if it was for this tournament going into it, I feel like you know that some players are probably more motivated than others, especially the ones that like didn't need to play that hard to qualify for anything. So like I don't know if Broccoli really prepped that much. I mean, I think we asked him in the script, and he says like he's not really trying this hard for this tournament.
Yeah,
so
he was not.
And then I think one of my games he was playing like Supers LeBlanc, which somehow worked out because he hit. But
really, that's some tech. Interesting. Spethom, when you look at these power rankings, I just kind of want to hear your thoughts as well in terms of when you see it. What's your reaction?
I mean, same kind of thing. It's one of those where I have to respect like prior tournament performance, and all of these guys, for the most part, have shown lots of success this set and past sets in general. So I have no complaints about looking at this, but I do want to shout you out, Frodan, for being the only person to vote for me this tournament.
Woohoo! That is true. I was going to bring that up myself, and I didn't even tell you to bring it up. My God. I was the only person on this panel that gave vote points to Spethom. Woohoo! Let's go me. All right. Also, before that, though, thank you for sharing that on a serious note. I give the credit to Iniko. Iniko was the first person to highlight you as like a beast. And I tend to believe in Iniko's eye test. I think he generally has a really good a beat on those things. So a lot of the, and actually it's the same for Ripple.
Yeah.
Now that I'm actually putting 2 and 2 together, it feels like you two were the people he hyped up the most. Is there something going on with that? Is that just coincidence?
I mean, I hang out with Iniko all the time, so I thought at first it was kind of just like friend, giving me some love. But then I found out more that he actually thought I was a good player. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
I mean, I haven't shown Iniko where the buttons are yet, so I know it's not bad.
So he's admitting there are buttons. That is progress. That is progress.
I mean, I got this button right here. Oh, sorry.
Not until the show is over, Mort. Not until the show is over. We also want to give shout outs. As much as I was like, man, I voted for Spethom and whatnot, there are also the top performing ballots from the panels, and we want to honor them. and it was a tie between Natures and Gangly. Both of them got 9 correct out of their 15 to make it to the top 16. And that means that Gangly's made it multiple times this set as the top performing ballot, which is really interesting because Gangly, by the way, does analysis very different than a lot of other players. A lot of players rely on eye test and current LP and like talking to them. Gangly does a lot of things through like tournament results analysis and trying to understand like how consistent they are across tournaments and let that color on top of other things like their ladder rankings. So his is completely different weighted, and I want to give that a shout because regardless of whether or not that methodology is correct in the eyes of the players and the fans, I think it's effective. And I think that just goes to show you, one, that there's multiple ways to analyze performance in TFT, and two, you should check out High Roll Radio. This guy has a lot of insight. I'm not sure if more have you ever listened to Gangly's podcast by any chance?
Yeah, occasionally. I don't literally watch every episode, but I've definitely watched a few, and it's definitely some fun stuff in there. The Moneyball era of TFT, I'm not sure is here yet, but I do like it, and it's very interesting to hear.
All right. And with that, you've seen everyone else's top 15. We also asked Spethom and Ripple to submit their top 15. Who wants to go first? I'll take any volunteers.
I volunteer Ripple.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's start off with Ripple's top 15. So this is an exercise we do post tournament to say, who do you think is your current top 15? And I gave him a little bit of a prompt of like players that are angling for or are specifically represented at regional. So this is Ripple's top 15. I'll just walk through it. So at number 1, we have Dish Soap. Number 2, we have Setsuko and Robin. Then we have Wasian, Ramblin, Guubums, and Socks, and that rounds out 7. 8 is Kyvix, 9 is Kurum, 10 is Clear. He puts himself at 11, very humble. Asa, Spethom, wait, he puts Spethom 2 below him at 13.
Oh no, I'm confused with no replay.
DP Malala, yeah, so no replay. So Spethom's the one asking questions, Ripple, so no replay.
Okay.
Also, wait, Ramblin? He's not in regionals yet.
It was like Conver regionals, just in general. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's his top 15 list, right? So ultimately he gets to put it. Technically, Ramblin's in contention for regionals, but the first question is, replay is not here, Ripple? Do you feel like he's 16? Is that why?
Oh, I mean, okay. I think putting together this list is extremely hard. Like even picking 15 people. Like I wish it could be like 20 or 25 or something.
Yes.
I feel like you would There's definitely like a good set of people, and then after that, like ordering them was also hard. I think I tried to think of some criteria, which is like how they're doing this set, how good I think they are overall, and then how they do in tournaments, and then also like a motivation thing, I guess. So like I think like DQA will probably be on this list, but I do not know how like motivated he is or how much he's been playing. I don't think he's been playing too much compared to like previous sets. And then, also like going into regionals, I guess, like, I mean, I think the top of this list, like Ditch Up, Let's Go, like Robin, Wasian, they do extremely well in tournaments. I think Ramblin, Guubums, and Socks are all very good, and also like they're usually motivated to do like pretty well. Like Ramblin, me, like Spethom, DP, Malala are like doing some scrims to like practice, so I'd hope we get good enough by regionals to deserve to be on this list. Kyvix, I just think he's like a beast in tournaments. So like last regionals he did really well, and I think his strength is like playing lines that other people don't, which is really, really useful in tournament and probably shines more there than like on ladder. And yeah.
Okay. We always ask this question: where's the first gap? Where do you insert the gap on your tier list on top 15?
I think most people say it's around like there's open Setsuko, and then there's gap probably, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then where's the next gap after that? So let's say Dish Up and Setsuko are 1 and 2, and then Robin's behind them. Like there's a gap, and Robin's third. Where's the next gap?
Well, I think the next gap would probably be like Robin and Wasian, because they've been like consistently doing pretty well. This sets, right?
Oh,
and then like
interesting.
Ramblin, Guubums, Socks are like, I think they're very good players, but they haven't been doing as well in tournaments this set. I think actually maybe I'm wrong for Socks. I don't know. I think the ordering is very hard, to be honest. I like, yeah.
I love hearing that because it is hard. It's not easy. Everyone's so critical and have their own opinions until they do it. And they're like, wait a second. It's actually really tricky. All right, I'm going to put you under the gun one more time. One final gap between, apparently you said like Robin and Wasian and then everybody else below it. Let's put another gap somewhere amongst the rest here.
Yeah. I think it was probably after like, all right, I think it was after the Sox gap that I was having a really hard time. I know I definitely want to put Kivix up there because I just really like him at his play. I guess it'd probably be like after Clear maybe or
After, right? But where you are, you think you're not at that level.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think after that, it's just like a bunch of people who don't have, or okay, who like, it was really hard for me to order after that, right? And then pick who to put on. Yeah, I don't think I'm that level just because I don't have like as much tournament experience or as long, and like maybe I really did just get lucky recently. I don't know.
Okay.
And yeah, I just don't have too much to prove that. Like.
Yeah, and I think some people might be asking why I'm pressing so much, but I think it's really interesting to hear these players' opinions because you get to hear you get to hear more perspectives on how players who play against them or observe them and watch them. It's just really difficult to get these perspectives unless you just directly ask the questions. So thanks for entertaining that. Go ahead, Ripple.
Oh, I think if me, Spethom, and DP did not do well in this tournament, it would be much easier to make this list.
I see. I mean, that's definitely part of it, though. Recent results. I mean, you're only as good as your most recent TFT tournament in some sense, right? So yeah. I think there's a lot of merit to that. More, you're nodding. Is there anything else that you catch your eyes when you're looking at this top 15?
No, I think this is generally a pretty safe top 15. You know, the Dishub, Setsuko, Robin, top 3 is pretty safe. Wasian, who's already qualified for the championship. Obviously, that's, you know, a gap there. You know, seeing Clear on here, I think is a little surprising, but other than that, it makes sense.
And with that, let's move on to Spethom's list.
I'm ready.
He's ready. All right. So here we go. At number 1, we got Setsuko, and then Robin at 2, Dishub at 3. Already a little bit of a spicy mix up there. Wasian at 4, Ripple at 5, Ripple top 5. Ooh. Kyvix replay at 7. Wow, that's a top 7 to remember. Broccoli, Kurum, Sox, DP. And then the last 4, Asa, Clear, DQA, and Cottontail. Cottontail gets a vote as well.
Wow.
He's my boy. I just want to say that. I have to shout him out. So he has to be 15th at least.
Okay. You know, and honestly, it's your top 15. A lot of times people use like 14, 15 to give a nod to their boys or their homies. So I got you there. Walk me through. So how about the same questions kind of over to you? Like, where do you think that first gap is on this tier list?
I'm going to be honest. First gap is right after Wasian. Like, I think the top 4 are a super clear top 4. There's a reason why we both have the same names in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just all consistently good. I mean, to be fair, Setsuko probably could have won this last tournament if it wasn't for the fact that Kingdom Gem was holding 2 Yasuos on his bench the entire time. Because there was no shot. Like, the only person who could actually beat him, in which the matchmaking worked out in my favor, was Ripple, because that's just how the Yasuo matchup goes.
Interesting. Can you explain like Ripple at 5? You think very highly. I'm assuming this is not a joke pick. Does you actually believe that he's like here in top 5?
I legitimately, like for me, the next gap is definitely around 8, like 5 through 8. So when I was making this list, I was looking at Gangli's stat sheet actually a lot.
Wow.
And so I was referencing back to tournaments, looking at some of the stats with it, and Kyvix, great in like every tournament. Broccoli, consistently good throughout the tournaments. But Ripple and Replay both stood out a lot throughout this stats with how well they've been performing. Not very few 8ths, really consistent top 4 rates. And then as seen by how many qualifier points they even got this set, they're really showing out.
Interesting. Cool. You and Gang, maybe it's because you went on High Road Radio podcast.
That was part of it. Yeah.
But you submitted this before you even went on High Road Radio, so you were backing that up even before you got on the show.
Yeah, I was looking at it stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't want to put myself on it because, to be fair, I don't really know where I would rank myself because, like I said, I do consider myself to be a for fun player first, but I do want to shout myself out because I have the second highest average placement across all players throughout the set. I've averaged a 3.4.
Wow.
But I've only played half as many games as
That is right. That's
who is
right.
in first, which is why he's by far my number one.
You didn't play Corrupted Cup, is that correct?
So what happened was I had auto-qualified for day 3, right? My computer broke the week before. So I got my computer back that Thursday, which still I should have downloaded the League client that day that I got it back.
Yeah.
Or the tournament client. But instead, I waited until after I got lunch with a friend. So it was like probably 1:30 and the tournament starts at 3. So I thought I had enough time. For some reason, the patch, or I downloaded the client in no time, but it took over an hour and a half for the client to patch. I don't know why. Like the next tournament, I downloaded it in less than 5 minutes. So I don't know what happened that day, but it was one of those where it was 3:10. I still had like 5 minutes left on the download, but Nature's was like, unfortunately, we got to replace you. So,
Oof.
At Nature's BF in chat. But you know what?
Hey, it's all good. I understand the rules.
That's right. You made it to regionals anyways.
Got to get ahead of time. Get it done.
Yeah, of course. And good on Nature's to not like try to make exceptions, right? Following the rules to make sure enforce that. Okay, now we got to ask Ripple real quick. Dude, he's put you 5th, man. What's your reaction to that?
Oh, I mean, I'm kind of flattered. I don't know. I feel like that's just based off like the recent tournaments. I guess it will make sense, but yeah, I just feel like, I guess if there's other people on the list where if they were put in my spots in the tournaments, like could they have just played it better than me? Which is like why I'd put people above me.
Okay, fair enough. Spethom, you did say Cottontail is your boy. So I can't tell if you're joking or if it's still like a serious thing that you actually believe like Cottontail is here on this top 15.
So I was honestly struggling with who to put after DQA between Cotton, Basso, and Malala. And at the end of the day, I gotta go with my friend Cotton no matter what.
You need a double up partner, right? You need to keep him in good graces. I'll take your science as a yes, as a complicit yes. More 2 people rated clear in the top 15. How does that make you feel?
I think he's definitely top 15. I'm just throwing him a little shade for the fun of it. I don't know if he's 10th, but I do think he's top 15.
Fair enough. All right. And it looks like, there's a lot of respect still, even amongst these players, right? You heard Ripple mention he's not sure about DQA's form. We see power rankings. People are like, really? Is DQA really up there? But you see even the players who are not necessarily part of the voting panel also kind of have that like limbo. What is the current player's form in? Is it worth putting in the top 15? You know they're capable of doing well. And I think that's what makes it really, really exciting. With that, let's move on to our next degree, unless there's anything else that people want to say about this top 15. It was really fun. All right, great.
I was gonna say, I think Spethom says he's like a for fun player, but I think that's like fine because I think it's very important to like have fun in the game. Like you're talking about like the mental thing, but also just being able to always play your game how you want to, and not like thinking about like the tilting stuff is like very important. And if you're very good at the game, then like it'll go really well.
I think that's well said. We don't have that many agrees for this episode, especially since we're a little bit short on time. So let's just roll through it for the next portion of the show into the favorite part, which is the fantasy score updates into the closing. All right. So this first one is kind of a broad one. It says K3 Soju not qualifying for regional shows how strong/difficult the North American region is. This is something that I saw some people saying, like, look, it's like maybe Soju wasn't prepping or trying, but there were people that are saying that NA is also becoming quite a strong region. You can't just like waltz in and it's becoming a little bit more difficult. So I want to hear whether or not people agree. Let's start off with Ripple.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this like statement needs to apply just like to K3 Soju. I think there's a lot of people who like did not qualify to regionals or maybe are in LCQ that you would not expect them to be there. Partly because there's just a lot more like good players in the region, and a lot of people are trying really hard now. I think there's like more studying and study groups going on now than there were in previous sets. And you really have to, you know, people who put like the work in, and yeah. Sorry.
You agree? So you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think like doing things like studying and scrimming and stuff is also going to become more and more important. I don't know how much like Soju or other people practice for the tournament other than like playing ladder, but I definitely think ladder is not like the best place to practice for tournaments now. You can like get away with a lot of stuff, or just like people are not playing their spots like how they should. So it's, yeah, I think it's getting more, like the region's getting stronger and players are studying and prepping a lot better.
All right. Spethom.
So I agree and disagree with it. It's one of those where, I mean, you got to think back. Soju almost didn't make it in even set 6, where he had to qualify through LCQ. It's one of those like, yes, NA is definitely getting stronger, but just because Soju doesn't make it, that isn't like the full-on evidence that NA itself is getting stronger. I think just the overall skill and the amount of names that are coming up in the community, and how the more talent there is, I think the stronger the top end will end up becoming, because people have to slowly adjust and keep getting better and better. So I think it's more just a sign of time increasing in the TFT lifespan more than anything else.
All right. Mortdog.
Ooh,
The resident NA hater.
Yeah, so I'm a disagree. I think it does show how difficult it has become to qualify, because it is more difficult for sure, right? There are a lot of better players, a lot of people trying harder. That's true. Does it show how strong NA is? No, I don't think so. If anything, a lot of the tournament performances recently overall, there are definitely exceptions. There are some really standout players, but overall, NA is still showing that they're behind the meta usually compared to China.
Oh,
They're still very reliant on stat sites for no reason, unwilling. Like, to hear Spethom say he's willing to like limit break is great, but generally NA still doesn't do that overall. And so does it show how strong the region is? No, not really. So I'm a no, disagree.
All right. I'm just going to take it at face value on both accounts and agree. I think that Soju not qualifying, I think that what maybe people don't understand is that he isn't trying and caring as much, but he is still trying. And even things like he played 40 games. Like, Soju is so used to be able to turn it on and qualify via snapshot. He didn't qualify for LCQs because it's not that easy anymore. And I think it just shows you it is more difficult. I understand exactly what everyone's saying, which is like there are many more reasons to indicate, and this is not the sole reason, but I do think that it is an indicator amongst many others that NA is getting better as a whole, regardless of what Mortdog may have said. But I think NA is improving. The chat seems to disagree, though. It looks like 63% said disagree. So I guess we'll just have to go with that.
We'll see.
A lot of Europeans in chat, actually. I know, because one of my mods is here. Agree number 2. After this weekend of play, the hype for Kaisa was overblown. She is strong, but not that out of line. Let's go with Mortdog first.
Oh, I disagree. I think the definition of like not that out of line is, I think, debatable here, but like she was clearly the best thing you could get, right? If you were an uncontested Kaisa player, cool. You probably won the lobby as long as you weren't, silly about it or got a top 4. So I think it was definitely strong. I think there was a bit, again, this is the NA problem, right? There was too much hype on it and a lot of players over relied on it, but it was definitely the S tier by a pretty substantial margin. So overall, I disagree.
Okay. Spethom, you're nodding. Seems like you also feel the same way.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I think I only played Kaisa twice during the tournament, and both games they were like absolutely given to me, and I was uncontested. So it was the freest top 2, top 3 that I had in the tournament. But I think, like Mort said, some people were over relying on it and not playing to all the possible outs.
Interesting. Okay, cool. It feels like that's the same way. I'm sure Ripple is it the same thing, unanimous across the board here?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't think you could like force it every game, But if you got your turn, you take it. So
That's right. That's right. And again, a lot of these agrees are just comments that I see and I think are interesting because I don't know if I agree with it. I think I'm also disagree. Kaisa is out of line. I mean, Mortdog's very much, if Mortdog's saying it, come on. Like, what evidence do you really need?
I'm generally pretty open about this. She's definitely at the top of the nerf list.
This might be the most one-sided poll that we had. 93% disagree. But it means a couple people probably do feel that way. So it looks like it's not 100%, which it very rarely is in this kinds of scenario. Last agree, which is something that we don't have to spend too much time on, but it was something that was brought up, which is last chance qualification shouldn't just be on ladder and your LP rankings. It should be primarily based on qualifier points. This is actually because a lot of people were saying like that the LP and the fact that there was MECHA Cup going on kind of was at odds with this. So I'm curious what people think. We'll start out with Spethom first.
Oh, I'm a huge disagreeer of this, but the reason why I am is because I missed from set 7 to like set 8 or till now. I probably missed 3 tournaments from just IRL stuff, either tech issues or stuff that I had previously going on. So in those cases, like not everyone can have every weekend free, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes conflicts will happen, and then not being able to have your last chance because we're missing a tournament doesn't feel fair to me. So I'd much rather have it be based off the LP rankings.
Okay, fair enough. Ripple, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important for it to be based off LP rankings, just because like I think the point of last chance qualifiers for anyone who wants to at this point in the set, once it still competes and like have a chance at regionals, they should be able to. Like Spethom said, not everyone has a chance to play every single tournament in the set. I know in set 6, like the LCQ is like one of my big like tournament experiences, and I was probably there because I missed out on the first tournament, so I didn't have enough qualification points. Yeah. And yeah, I think it gives players a chance to come back if they miss part of the sets. But I do think like for this one specifically, it was probably a complaint because the LP cutoff was right after the MECHA Cup tournaments where you find out if you need to play or not. So people either be like scrambling to get their LP up because they realize they need to, or they just didn't have enough time. And I guess I was just like unlucky with how the timing went.
Okay, so proper planning around it will make it feel much better is the sentiment there. Mortdog, you were kind of nodding your head. Is that how you feel as well?
No, so I'm actually in agree here, but it's mostly because of the word primarily. I think if you told me it was like a 4-12 or 8-8 split based on ladder, LP, and qualifier points, I think that actually makes a bunch more sense to me. To literally be one off the cutoff on qualifier points and then not make it off LP, which thankfully didn't happen, but I think that's just as ridiculous. So to me, I would go like I said, a 4-12 or an 8-8 split, and so that's why I agree it shouldn't primarily be based off ladder.
Interesting.
I think having qualifier points like influence it would be nice, but qualifier and LP would a
mixture would be fine.
I think that's where I ultimately land and why I think that I agree with it, because it feels like there is almost no reward for showing up a lot and trying to perform well and do and get close but not quite there. And you kind of mentioned how no one has the time. Not everyone has the time to be able to invest into like all these tournament things, but on the inverse of it, what about the people who did invest a lot of time? And so I feel like that's where my heart goes to, the people that ultimately feel like they missed out because they invested a lot and just as a result it didn't really amount to anything. But I suppose these are these extreme scenarios. They're not exactly like the majority of the players, so that's why I think it's interesting discussion. So I'm going to go with a soft agree. And it looks like chat leans towards disagree. It started off with more agree, but it looks like we're going a 35-65 split into disagree. So it seems like most people really like that open system. For the record, ladder is a tournament in a sense. It's just not necessarily the traditional way. And you have as many games as you want to prove yourself. And ultimately, LP you really have no excuse in terms of LP qualification in some ways. You have all the time that you can to manage it yourself.
Quick side note, I agree with that. Ladder is a tournament. We saw with the box challenge. That was actually a very fun tournament to watch. So I agree with that.
Yes, sir. And we gassed up a lot on the previous episode. Does someone else want to chime in?
Oh, I just think it's kind of funny because with this timing that you had to have a certain LP by after the tournaments, I feel like there's a superstition for fun that people have where like if you run down your LP and become like grandmasters before a tournament, you'll get like the GM buff, you know?
Yes.
And for this one, you really couldn't do that, right? Because if you ran down, you really didn't have enough time to go back up.
Ah, that's right. The old tech didn't work anymore. They had to adapt.
Like I said, the reason why I was playing double up to practice was because I didn't want to lose my LP.
Yep.
So I had the LCQ out if I didn't make top 4.
Oh dear. All right. Well, hopefully we can time that better in the sets moving forward. And as Mort said, we look forward to seeing all of those competitive news coming up soon. Last stretch of the show, we got to do a fantasy scores update. It's not relevant to you three. Usually this is me and Bryce going at it, but this was not even close. Frodan smacks down the competition, 305 over Bryce's 234, which, by the way, Bryce didn't do any studying, no prep, has been taking care of his kids. His wife is pregnant. He's trying to write this 20,000 word essay about esports while handling his company. Still managed to outplace Guubums and Socks on Fantasy Draft despite being this unprepared. Guubums and Socks, you guys are so free. Spend some time watching other people play before you open your mouths again.
Ooh, nice.
With that being said, this was all because we're hyping up the last chance qualifier. I'm sorry, Showtime and chat. Showtime spent time putting all 3 of himself, I think, Bosso's skills, and Malala's power rankings going to LCQ. We don't have time to show it, but it's going to be hype. I'm casting it. It'll be me, Boopasaurus, and Rainplosion making her debut as a commentator. That's right. Rain won't be competing. She'll be casting, so it'll be fun. I've never cast mid-range. She's never casted TFT before. So whether or not it ends up being great or perhaps a train wreck, you just have to tune in and find out. Hopefully it's not the latter.
It's a learning experience. There's no such thing as train wrecks. They're all learning experiences.
That's right. It goes into the dev blog at the end of the set.
T-Pay is back in chat.
What up, T-Pay?
Shadow items. Shadow items were a learning experience.
Yes, sir. All right, and with that, we are at the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode. Let's get some final words and thoughts before we let everyone go. We'll start off with RippleOverdrive.
I don't know. Thank you for having me on here. It was really fun talking to you 3. Yeah.
All right, man, a few words. We'll see you hopefully soon in regionals. Spethom.
Same. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate everything you guys do for the community. And hopefully, me and Ripple can show out at regionals, maybe make it to worlds. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe.
That's great.
Study group OP.
Study group is OP. Real quick, Spethom, you mentioned that you want to donate your winnings from the tournament to the mental health charity. Did you pick one yet?
Yes. So basically each month, so I'm not going to lie, I have been slacking with streaming a little bit, but that's because, I've been prepping, tournament, all that kind of stuff. But so each month, all my stream proceeds and coaching proceeds, I donate to charity. And then any tournament proceeds I get, I have half of it go. So $1,750 plus whatever I make from streaming this month are all going to go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I'm a big believer in mental health charities, and I just want to give back to the community that's helped me out so much. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. And great initiative. And we're cheering for you. It just makes it really easy to, what a likable guy. Mortdog, any final thoughts?
No, excited to see how it all plays out. See LCQ, see regionals, see the championship. That's always really fun. It feels like it's when the set's at its best too. So we get to see people playing kind of the set how it was always envisioned, and that's going to be fun. And then on the dev side, thank you everybody for continuing to support TFT on behalf of the whole team. And this is always my least favorite time of the set in a way, because it's like we know what's coming and it's so close to being able to talk about it, but we just got to kind of go wait and ride the end of the coattails of the current set. So can't wait to show you what's all in store from the team.
Ooh, we're so excited. Also, Mort didn't shout it out, but he's hosting like a fun tournament coming up about new play mode, the portals. I'm not sure exactly what it's about. I signed up for it. I hope I get to play in it. That'd be really cool. I love crushing EU, especially if I'm the one doing it. So please, Mortdog. And that's the end of my campaign. If you guys missed any part of this episode, make sure to check out the stuff either on YouTube or Spotify or Anchor. If you're an audio only listener, Please give us 5 stars. That helps us with discoverability a lot. And for the next episode, we're going to preview North America Regionals. I'm going to try to convince Bryce to say yes to that episode because he said that he was done. I need to get him back, and even though he's not casting, if not, we'll let you know who we are getting. But this has been episode number 22 with the MECHA Cup reviewed with Frodan, Mortdog, Spethom, and RippleOverdrive. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time for more TFT action.